Just moving slightly adjacent, in terms of customers using fairly standard uh, operating systems or applications, I'm thinking sort of Microsoft 365, Google Workspace. Um, do you sort of bump into the same sort of misconceptions customers have when it comes to data set? I mean, do they just assume because it's Microsoft or Google that they're going to kind of get looked after by them? What do people, as I say, sort of misunderstand and misconceive when it comes to using these type of platforms?
Yeah. The cloud is the mythical unicorn in the sky, and therefore all of our systems must be protected because they're with Microsoft and with Google. And I mean, these application providers are pretty forthcoming with their guidance around this, and suggesting that they are data processors. They're providers of the application. The protection of the data residing within those applications is the responsibility of the organization using them, or individual using them, of course. So, their end user license agreements, generalizing here, state in multiple different areas that you should have a third party backup solution in place. So, for example, all systems suffer occasional disruptions and outages, and therefore your access to the system may be limited, and subsequently your access to the data may be limited. So implementing a third-party backup solution will obviously help to offset that, as well as situations like deprovisioning users. So if an individual within an organization's account in one of these SaaS application providers is deleted, their data gets deleted as well. And there's usually a time frame to that, but by the time an organization's understood or realized that that's happened, usually it's too late. They've already got back round to the point in time at which they're being audited, or they're doing their finances, or what have you, and at that point that data's gone. So it is incredibly important that businesses are looking at SaaS applications in the same way as they're looking at endpoint devices and critical infrastructure servers and what have you, because access to those systems and recovery of the data that resides within them is as important today as the endpoint and the server. So SaaS-based applications are one such scenario where every customer environment is the same. So unsurprisingly, cyber criminals are focusing on these SaaS applications because if they can write malicious code, malicious software once and hit every user of Microsoft 365, that's a much bigger bang for their buck. So we're seeing a real increase in cyber attacks on SaaS-based applications. And this is where things like email security, anti-phishing, anti-spam are really important. Cloud detection and response, having a mechanism to detect who's accessing these systems, and then the policies and procedures in place to ensure that malicious activity is being detected and automated responses to those detections are in place. And then more importantly than anything else, you've got a mechanism to recover the data, because if the data's gone, that's a massive problem for these organizations, because so much more critical intellectual property is now residing in these SaaS-based applications. And it's not just Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, it's Salesforce, it's some of the critical finance applications. Like all of these applications are now advising that you should have backups of them, because without the data that resides within them, your organization is going to be significantly hindered as a result.
Okay, so I guess follow on from that, how do you see a consolidated approach? So we're talking, protecting endpoints, SaaS applications, cloud workloads, improving both operational efficiency and resilience, and maybe sort of similar, put it a slightly different way or related. What are the operational advantages of managing diverse backup scenarios? That those same different, so, and I guess as well, if you can, I don't know if final part of the question, so apologies, it's quite a convoluted one, but can you give any particular examples where such an approach, consolidating or integrating endpoint and SaaS protection, for example, has prevented costly data. So I suppose it's consolidating, managing in one, in one place as opposed to lots of individuals. What are the advantages and the real world benefits? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, there is no advantage to a disparate array of tools. It just comes as a cost. But primarily for the managed service providers providing the services to their customers, because the customers want driven solutions. They want solutions to their problems. In a lot of instances, the end user organizations that are provided services by the managed service providers that we work with don't really care what's in the kit bag. They just want to guarantee that they're going to limit data loss, they're going to limit downtime, they're going to adhere to their cyber insurance requirements and their compliance standards. So, it really comes as a huge benefit to the managed service provider not having to manage a disparate array of tools. That also allows for a significant reduction in human error, a reduction in process overhead or technical debt, when it comes to managing these solutions, and automation. Because if you can feed all of the relevant telemetry from both your security stack for endpoints, your security stack for critical infrastructure, your security stack for SaaS applications, as well as the recovery mechanisms for all of those into a central platform that proactively alerts and then automatically creates tickets. And then that ticketing system has a level of automation that helps to, in some instances, even resolve those problems for you. Then you can start scaling the protection for the customers you're providing services to, and streamline those processes so that there is less risk of human error, less risk of gaps in the security posture, less risks of technical oversight in terms of, are certain things implemented on certain areas of that customer environment, have we missed anything? The more you can automate, the more you can offset the risk, and do it all at a reduced cost, because managing different systems comes with managing different account managers, comes with managing different invoices, and then that becomes an invoicing nightmare to your customers in terms of what services are they providing. All of it comes with a massive overhead. So the more that can be centralized, the more that can be unified, the more that can be integrated, the more that can be automated, and the better the service for the customer, the better the internal experience. And talking specifically around Kaseya 365, which obviously we've now got focused on the endpoint device, the SaaS-based application, and the internal operational functions of managed service providers. It's allowing organizations to, in some instances, 10x the number of customers they're servicing without having to add additional humans, because so much of that process can be automated. And it's resulting in a better customer experience, a more streamlined internal experience for the managed service providers, and better security across the board. So we're in a world where automation is key now. Organizations that are not automating their processes are going to be left behind, because they're going to be carrying so much overhead in terms of the manual processes that, from a costing standpoint, it's just not viable long term.
Okay, and in terms of another one of your sort of solutions, I guess I'd be interested in terms of Datto's endpoint and SaaS backup strategy. How does that help address data loss risks that we talked about native cloud platforms, what they don't cover. So how does the Datto endpoint as say in SaaS backup strategy address those gaps, if you like?
Yeah, so obviously data is now everywhere. And critical data can reside on the servers, the endpoint machines, or the SaaS-based applications. And ensuring that you've got the same level of protection across all three has never been more important. So obviously data loss is data loss, regardless of where that data is lost from, right? It's still a problem. So whether it's critical systems, whether it's endpoint machines, or whether it's SaaS applications, we need to have a mechanism of both robustly backing up and robustly recovering that critical business data. And that might be, proposals for new customers. It might be last year's tax returns. It might be the source code for the application that you provide your customers. Whatever that data is, it's still a massive problem for organizations. And the disparate location of those systems is now causing a headache for many organizations in terms of managing the level of protection, because it was all on the server. It then was on the server in the SaaS-based applications, and more importantly, now for many organizations, they're cloud only. They rely on their laptops and desktops. All the data resides on them, so the endpoint machines are becoming more and more critical. So it's more important than it has been ever before to have the same level of protections on all three of those areas. And that is made, say, worse, but more difficult by the disparate locations of what was once the critical infrastructure, because that's not whirring away in the cupboard anymore in the office. That's in privately hosted cloud infrastructure, or it's in AWS, or it's in Azure. So there's so many different facets of organizational data location that the managed service provider today has to manage all of that for every customer and ensure the same level of recoverability, the same level of front-end protection, the same element of business continuity for those critical systems is in place to maintain production, maintain compliance, maintain